If I had my way, everything would be so nice. This world would be like Paris. No, it would be a paradise. No one would ever have to say, I'm going to get my wish someday. All one would have to do is say, this is my order, if you may. Welcome to another episode of The School Without Walls. I'm Antonio Hobbs, host and founder of this educational program. The date is November the 6th, 2013. My guest today is a student of mine, a student here at the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, La Señorita Chelsea Miller. Glad to have you, Chelsea.
Glad to be here.
Okay. Chelsea, what I'm going to do is have a few preliminary remarks, and then I'll get right back to you. I always like to give a shout out to Calvin Booker, who is the president of the Alumni Association. He works so hard. He works night and day to try to help this school, and he wants us to work with the chancellor, when I say us, all of us, to work with the chancellor to try to recruit students whereby this time next year we'll have a population around 4,000. Mm-hmm. Calvin said we don't have to wait 2 years. No. The chancellor his goal is in 2 years to have 4,000 students. And of course with 4,000 students we have more money to be more effective. It's unfortunate, but the smaller the population is, the less money there is, and of course teachers cannot be paid as well as teachers in larger schools, and so often the good teachers leave us. So I also like to shout out to the parents out there. If you have any wealth that you want to, that you can give to the university, do that like many people do. We want more people to do that. Again, we are proud of Calvin Booker and what he's doing. And of course I'm an author of this book. It's Food for the Power of Thinking. It traces humanity back from Noah and his 3 sons. Roots of the Races is the subtitle. We'd like for Calvin Booker and other people out there to purchase this book. And would you work with helping to sell the book too?
Yes.
Very good. Okay. Yeah, this book goes back to Noah and his 3 sons. You remember Noah in the Bible?
Yes.
And he had a son named Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Well, according to most theologians, Ham is the father of what is called the black race, or the African race, and Japheth is the father of what is now called the white race. It's important to say now called because they were not called that many years ago. They were Hamites and Japhites. And you've heard of this character in the Bible called Abraham, have you? And Abraham comes from Shem. That's why they call them Shemites to this very day. So you don't call them by color. They don't call them black or white. They call them Shemites. So I'm encouraging our people to learn that history, and you might want to refer to the people that are now called Africans or blacks sometimes as Shemites. Yeah, that takes in a lot of people. And Japhites would be the white people. And of course Shemites would be the folk that we refer to as Jews today. Although you know that there were 12 tribes of Israelites, right? Do you know that little history of the Israelites?
A little bit.
Yeah, like there was a man named Jacob, had 12 sons, and later on in time, each son became the head of a nation, and there was 12 nations, and of course Judah was one of the nations that survived to this very day. So we have people called Jewish. Right. The Jewish people are mostly converts to the religion. They are not the original people who are descendants of Abraham. And as they say in Spanish, es muy importante saberlo, ¿verdad? You know that, huh?
Sí.
It's very important to know that because a lot of people are confused today with Jewish and Jew. Jewish is a convert. Anybody can be Jewish because we're talking about the religion. But when we say Jew, we're talking about a nationality, and we're not talking about a race. I'll go on record as saying there's never been a Jewish race, because race means a group of people that have a lot in common when it comes to appearance. Sometimes the speech doesn't have to be the same, but they look so similar. Well, Jews have been a variety of all people, always. Okay?
Okay.
So much for that. Now, let's get on to Chelsea. Chelsea, where in the world were you born?
I was born in Dallas, Texas.
Dallas, Texas?
Yes, and I lived in Fort Worth and in the Metroplex throughout my lifetime.
So you're a Texas girl?
Yes, I'm from Texas.
What in the world is a Metroplex?
Well, there's like Dallas, Fort Worth, and Arlington is what they consider the Metroplex.
And they are joined as far
Yes.
as yeah.
Right,
Okay.
so there's Fort Worth, and then once you leave out to Fort Worth, you go into Arlington and then into Dallas. So they consider that the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
Metroplex. Okay, that sounds good. You finished high school there, right?
Yes, I graduated from Calvary Christian Academy in Fort Worth,
Okay.
Texas.
Did you go to an elementary academy, or was it just high school?
I went to so many different schools
did?
throughout, yes, while I was in grade school.
Yeah.
But I've always been in private school. I went to public school for maybe about a year and a half, and I didn't really like it.
Oh, you didn't?
So I just, kind of
What
went
was it
back
about
to private.
public school you didn't like?
Well, it was much bigger than what I was used to, because private school is.
Did you
know,
start at a private school?
I did.
Oh, you
I did.
started at
I
a
started
private
in private school from pre-K all the way up into ninth grade.
Oh, to ninth grade?
Ninth grade. And
private
10th
school.
grade is when I decided to go to public
Oh,
school.
why did you make that decision?
Well, I was kind of just trying to get out there, and my mom.
Kinda curious about what was out
just
there?
curious. And we had just recently moved from a different neighborhood into another neighborhood, so I just like, well, maybe I should go to the neighborhood high school. And mom was like, okay, well, of course she wasn't going to argue with me, because that was more money in her pocket. It doesn't cost to go to public school.
There you
You just
go.
got to pay your taxes,
Yeah.
of course. But so she let me do that, and it wasn't really for me. So.
I can understand that, because the public schools are so much different than they were when I was in school. If I had children, I would send them to a good private school, being able to do so. But certainly we need public schools for those who are not able to do so.
Right.
Okay, we're going to go make a break. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Looking for these? You drive Buzzed. It could be one very expensive ride.
First, you gotta make bail. Then pay me to get your car back.
Your insurance premiums will go through the roof.
And my legal fees just keep adding up. All told, it could end up costing you $10,000.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When you're out there, there's no telling what you'll find.
I see it, I see it! Oh, look at you.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org.
How did UAPB prepare me? The agriculture program. At the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, it is very hands-on. They teach us how to use the technology and the tools of today's industry. Career Services helped me obtain 2 internships, and that provided me the opportunities to travel to different places like the Florida Everglades, where I practice conservation work. Opportunities like that also taught me just how many different jobs I can do with my degree. I'll be working with the USDA as a soil conservationist. That is how UAPB prepared me.
Those of you who have just joined us, I'm Antonio Hobbs, host and founder of this educational program called the School Without Walls. My guest is La Senorita Chelsea Miller. I'd also like to mention that the producer of this particular program is Mr. William Lawson. He's also a student here at the University of Arkansas, and he's a member of St. John African Methodist Episcopal Church, where Mr. Alvin Smith is the pastor. Chelsea, we were talking about school on the other side. I believe you told me earlier that you are the only child.
Yes.
How about that? You also told me they spoil you, did you?
No.
You don't think so, do you?
Just blessed.
Just blessed.
I call it blessed.
Just blessed. Highly blessed, I'm sure. Tell me a little bit about your parents. Were you raised by mom and dad, or just by one parent?
I was raised by both parents up until I was about 5 years old. My dad had different plans in his life, and he, left and moved on from my mother and I. But my mother continued to, let me have a relationship with my father. She wasn't angry towards him. I visited him, of course, every other weekend, like the law says I'm supposed to, and sometimes more than that. But I was raised by my mother. It was just a single mother. She got married a couple times here and there, but other than that, she was my support.
Did you say she got married a couple times thereafter?
Yes.
And still she's single? She's single?
No, she's not single now.
Okay.
But the majority of my life, she was single.
Okay, most of your growing up, she was a single mother, but she did marry before you graduated from high school?
Yes.
I see. Okay. And what do they do for a living, your parents?
My mother, she is a budget analyst for the government. Now she's gotten promoted to managing her entire department, which is good. My father, he works in the billing area for Dallas County, and he does some billing work with them. So pretty good.
Very good, very good. Now, what caused you, we're so glad you came to UAPB, but what caused you, out of all the universities on the earth, why did you come here?
Well, I was doing some research on colleges. I had applied to about 6 colleges before I applied to UAPB. I was looking for scholarships online, and I saw it pop up, and I was like, I think my mom's coworker, she went to UAPB. So I kind of put 2 and 2 together, and I applied for the scholarship, and they were the only ones who gave me feedback. I was applying to big universities like Texas Tech and Texas A&M Commerce and things like that. So, and they weren't really giving me scholarships, and my mom told me that she wasn't going to be able to pay for me to go to college out of pocket. So, I followed through with that, and I ended up coming here, and I found out about the Vesper Choir, and my full tuition was paid for. So I was like, I can't pass up this opportunity. So I ended up coming to this university, and I will say that I don't regret this decision at all. I really love my university.
Good. How are you classified?
I'm a junior.
You're a junior, so this year in your 3rd year here.
Yes.
I see. And you have a choir scholarship.
Yes, sir.
That's wonderful. What is the tuition here now? I don't even know. It pays.
I'm not even sure. It's raised, I think, twice since I've been here. So I'm not even sure what the tuition is.
But it pays that, right?
It pays, yes.
Now, you live on campus, or you live in the city?
I recently moved off campus this year. Yes.
What in the world did you do that
for? A big step for me. So it got to be expensive to live on campus. I had a single room, so that was probably about $2,500 more than living with a roommate in the Delta Housing Complex. So it was getting a little pricey. So I found out that it's kind of actually cheaper to live off campus.
Right, if you have a roommate to share the expense.
To share the expenses, exactly.
I see.
Exactly.
Certainly, especially if you have transportation, you can get, okay. Do you work at all?
I worked during the summer. Right now, the reason that it's kind of hard to find a job is because Vesper is very demanding. We have rehearsals probably 3 hours in the evenings every day, except for Thursdays. So I would only be working on the weekends, but I'm in the process of finding a job that I can, just do on the weekends, maybe commute to Little Rock or something like that. So.
Okay. What is your major?
My major is mass communications.
Mass communications.
Yes.
Now talk to us a little bit about that. Once you get that degree, what are some of the possibilities as far as employment is concerned?
As far as my major is concerned, upon graduation, I plan to go maybe work for a company in the public relations department maybe. I want to do more of the writing side of mass communications because of course there's broadcast journalism, which is like radio and TV personality. I wouldn't mind doing that because of my theater background, but I do want to, kind of expand in the writing area. Yeah,
Tell me a little bit more about the writing. What would be some of the things you would write?
You can be, for example, an editor for a magazine. You go out and you find interesting stories that you think that the audience would be intrigued about, and you can write about it in magazine, newspaper, anything like that. And so I would mostly want to do it for the Black community, because there are so many, on TV, we are portrayed differently than what I would like for our race to be portrayed as.
Right,
so,
sort of as buffoons.
Yeah,
right.
So it would be nice for, I want to get our people reading more instead of just watching these reality TV shows and, being influenced by those. So I think that I would, if
Have you done research that indicates that those persons can make a pretty decent living? Because money is very important.
It is important, and my mom and I talk about that. We talk about that quite frequently. There are a lot of opportunities out there for mass communication majors. Not as much if I was a business major, of course, but
there are opportunities where nice income can be made from that type of work. I see. That's very interesting. Now, I was reminded of Ebonics. Did I ever talk to you in the class about Ebonics?
Yes, you did.
We want to share that when we come back. So I want to see, we have 1 minute after the break, I want to see how much you remember about my definition of Ebonics, okay? When you mentioned the television, I'm paraphrasing what you said, but it seemed to take advantage of African Americans because a lot of us work because we're going to make some money, but we're being a buffoon.
Right.
I'm so proud that there were persons like Sidney Poitier, you ever heard of, never played a buffoon.
Yes.
There were certain people would not do that. But I understand that some do it because they need the money, right? We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Time to wake up. I've got a job to do today.
I've got a job to do today.
Don't forget, you've got a job to do today.
Hey, Mom. I got the job. Thanks.
I've got the job. Welcome aboard.
Have a good first day at work, Mom.
Your donations to Goodwill fund job training programs right in your community.
Feels good to start fresh, right?
Sure does. And like that, you're a job creator.
Oh! Checking your fantasy league?
Nah, just my 401k statement.
Nice. Where'd you find the money for that?
I just been saving a little every month.
I can't seem to save anything.
Well, what about all this? What about the money you're spending?
What money? It's gone before I can get my hands on it.
I got a pizza for a Todd.
Hey, can somebody spot me?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind.
It's 547.
Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org.
So, I just moved in with this family, and it's embarrassing. The little one, he likes to go outside and crawl around in the giant litter box. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I was born and I knew how to use the litter box. Look at that. That's disgusting. Oh, poop already. You're making me nervous. Oh, okay, I can't look at this anymore. I really hope he grows out of this, for his sake.
Those of you who just joined us, I'm Antonio Hobbs, host and founder of this educational program. Also, I'm proud to say that I'm an assistant professor of Spanish here at the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. My guest is Ms. Chelsea Miller. On the other side of the break, we were talking about the media and how some African Americans are portrayed as buffoons and things of that nature. That reminded me how the media has misled many people in what Ebonics is. And I lectured to you all about Ebonics in the class. I want to see whether you got an A, B, or C. What is your definition of Ebonics?
Okay, the first definition that I thought Ebonics was a type of slang that basically our type of African Americans use, you know, kind of like slang and broken English.
Broken English is a key word, okay.
But you enlightened us that Ebonics was developed from a man, I'm not sure of his name.
Dr. Robert Williams.
Dr. Robert Williams.
Professor at one of the universities in Missouri.
Developed Ebonics as the language of the people, meaning African
He
Americans.
discovered it because they've always used it, but it didn't have a name.
Okay.
He discovered that and he named it
Ebonics because of the ebony color, and it was called the black
sounds,
the
Ebonics, black phonics.
Black phonics,
yeah,
right.
Black phonics, ebony, Ebonics, yeah.
So it was developed from that.
That's the name he gave it. Okay, and that means, what is the difference in Ebonics and broken English? I told you that. See if you remember that. So far, you've done well. You're on an A minus right now.
Okay. Broken English is something that a person, just from what they hear or how they speak,
which is non-standard English, right?
It's not correct English.
But what is Ebonics?
Ebonics is the language of the people.
The language of the people. All people or some people?
Just the African American people.
Okay, that's pretty good. Let me help you on that one a little bit. Ebonics is speaking in metaphors. See, Dr. Williams recognized that black people out of Africa spoke in metaphors. For those who do not know what a metaphor is you're descriptive. You're describing an event or situation. That's part of the African culture. And they took the English words and placed them on the pattern of their native language. See, they lost their language. See, that was done on purpose, as you perhaps know. The slave owners did not want them to maintain their language. Why do you think they didn't want the Africans to maintain their English? I mean, their language. It wasn't English.
You said the slaves?
The slaves
didn't want them to maintain?
No, the slave owners did not want the slaves to maintain their mother tongue.
Well, because they felt like that the slaves, well, of course, they were beneath them, so they didn't want them to be on the same level as them, probably in speaking as they spoke. They wanted them to have their own.
Have their own?
And be,
subordinate?
Yes.
Okay, that was a good thought. But what about if you don't retain your mother's language, then you have to learn a new language, and you can't communicate among one another as well. Do you think that might have had something to do with it? See, communication is important. See, they couldn't speak English. They had to pick up English. I think it's very important for the public to understand that to this very day, more African Americans do not speak standard English as European Americans, because the language, especially of the South, the majority of European, meaning white people, that language is English. That's the mother tongue. And for 300 years in this country, the African American did not have an English teacher. See? So they had to listen and pick up the language according to what they thought the person was saying. And and of course, did you know that about 200 years passed where they did not have a school system?
I did not know that.
Yeah. So I'm saying this because it bothers me for our system, our educational system, to make statements of this nature, Chelsea. Well, we're working so hard to close the gap between the African American and the white students without explaining why there's a gap.
Right.
Now, why do you think there's a gap?
Well, it started back in the 50s, or
way
earlier, back in slavery. It didn't start getting recognized until, our people started standing up for what they wanted, because there shouldn't have ever been a gap or, a difference between African Americans and white people.
For the opportunities of learning, but it existed. That is very important to understand, and it bothers me when they don't say, well, due to the history of the African American experience in this country, by having at least 200 years where it was against the law for them to have a teacher, they are behind. So we feel that, this is white people speaking, we feel that it's our responsibility to do whatever we can to bridge the gap. Then the white children, as well as the black children, will know why there's a gap. But what Hobbes say is that you're perpetuating the same system, that blacks are dumb. That's why they're behind. In other words, we've got to get the dummies, we've got to close the gap between the dummies and the white.
Right.
Because I know if I know that, they know that there's the reason,
True.
but they don't bring it out. So professional people, I hope you will, people in power will recognize what I'm saying and say, there's a reason that the African American is behind. It's not because what my great-great-grandparents said, that you innately were not intelligent, didn't have the ability to learn. That has been taught for several centuries. So we have 2 minutes, and I'm going to give you a chance to wrap this up. We have 2 minutes. What can you say? Have I provoked any thoughts in your mind that you might say something that you perhaps wouldn't have been able to say as we conclude?
As we conclude, I'd like to say to my people, being African American, and I'm very proud to be an African American, and I hope that I can make an impact on people upon graduation or even before I graduate from this institution. Education is very important, and I would like for us to be a more educated race in all aspects, not even just with academics, just education on just our ancestors and the ways that they have paved for us. So it's important. So get all
the learning you can
that you can, and be knowledgeable about everything, because it's very important.
Well, glad to have you, and Chelsea, I think you're going to
here.
be successful because you seem to have been trained properly and raised properly, and I always credit the mother. The mother's the key player. I think I mentioned that to you all. Your first teacher's the mother, if she raised you.
Right.
And you evidently, I want you to tell your mother that Dr. Hobbs said, you have a fine mother. And she will get a copy of this CD. Okay, glad to have you.
Thank you.
Okay.